life wants you to be happy because that's what it needs of you. It needs you to be expressed from this place of joy and abundance, not from doubt, not from fear, not from obligation.
Because if we could only harness all of this fabulosity of all of the women across the world who have held themselves back.
Women are ready to move this mountain. We just have to trust each other.
Hi, everybody. Juliet Peters with the podcast, Her Table, Her Rules. Super happy that you're here. But I am thrilled that Lia Dunlap, who is the Oracle on Purpose, has decided to join us today, grace us with her presence. Because I really, you have so many amazing pearls of wisdom to impart to all of the women business owners out there. And as you know, this podcast is about really being yourself and coming fully into yourself, which is something that I know you're down with.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about really how you, first of all, how did you start your business originally, and how did you migrate from what you were doing originally to where you are at now?
Oh, it's such a great question because, well, first of all, thank you so much, Juliet. I would talk to you anytime. So anytime you need me, I'm here. And I would say that it was one of those things where I had worked alongside of my business. I should say the other way around. I actually snuck around and did my business while I was in corporate sales and marketing. And what I realized at the point that I finally couldn't do both anymore was it was literally physically killing me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that, I don't need any more signs. And of course, as an oracle and an intuitive, listening to signs is kind of my job. It's kind of my gig. And what I recognized was that after years of doing this on the side and trying to make it fit around what was expected of me and my family and just in my sphere, for what would look like success, it's like, okay, I'm getting all of these promotions. I'm doing all these great things. I'm working in these great companies. I don't care. I don't care about what I'm doing. And that part of me that really lit me up was what I would do like on the weekends, and I would go to women's retreats and I would speak about what I really cared about. And eventually it kind of came to full head when I thought, during a day when I was supposed to be traveling around and doing my sales calls and working with people in the city, I started not feeling well. I was heading back to the office to check out for the day. And instead of really listening to that very first inkling, I was like, no, I've got to, be responsible. And I've got to, these guys are like really tightening up on anybody who's done with any kind of corporate, like this was the year where we're all going to have to bring in more money and more dollars and more revenue and all these things. And there's a lot of pressure at that job to do that. And the particular manager was really strict, and he was like kind of losing his mind about it. Yeah, he was kind of losing his beans about it. And so he was like really, riding everybody. And so like that was in my head. Like I have to get back there because I have to check out. I have to let them know like I'm still doing it. I'm still doing this whole thing. And as I was traveling over a bridge between our cities during rush hour traffic, which means it's like a 2-hour drive across this bridge, I started to sweat, and I started to have a pain in my shoulder and my arm. I was all alone, of course. And I was like, that's not okay. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, just like trying to remain calm. But then I really started to sweat, and I was really panicking. And all I could think was like, get there, just get there, just get there. Many minutes later, I finally get to the office in front of his glass office. I'm pacing, and he looks at me, and there's somebody in his office. They're just chatting or whatever. And he kind of calls me in, and he said, what's going on? And I said, I think I'm having a heart attack. Ugh. And he was like, what are you doing here? Now, mind you, I lived in the city that I had just left. I needed to go back across the bridge to go to the hospital. I drove myself back. And there are so many layers of this that looking back now, all these years later, that I just see so many women suffer through.
Absolutely.
Right? Which is like not listening to the first thing. Right. When it happened, not taking my own care, my own health to mind. And then also like giving up my power to someone else to say like they could release me to go take care of myself.
So crazy.
Right? It's so crazy. So that was the time where I was like, okay, what is this about? So luckily it wasn't a heart attack, but there was some stuff I had to do medically, and I was off. So
Yes.
I got to step away, and that step away was when it really hit me. Like, you're not going back. Like, that's like literally,
That's
I don't,
it.
it was like the
That's
universe was
the
saying,
end.
we don't know what else we need to do
Right.
to make you understand. That's enough.
Yeah.
And so I sent a message to my boss when he like left me a list of things he wanted me to do when I got back. And I said, I am not coming back.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
That was it. And so I was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? Like, I have an amazing husband. So thank God for that, because I sat in the room after I sent that text, and I was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do?
Yeah.
He walked in. He's like, what's going on? And I said, just quit my job. He's like, oh, finally. Like, he knew it was coming. He knew
Right.
it was good for me. And so he's like, okay, like, what are we doing? I
Yeah.
said, well, I think it's time. I've been doing all this stuff in secret on the side, all these things, but it's really who I am, and I need to just go off and do it. So I literally threw up a shingle. It wasn't pretty at the beginning, but I gave everything into it. And I trusted that if that was the biggest sign I could have gotten, thank goodness I listened, because what I found was the people came, right? The business was there. And I just kept leaning into it at every avenue I could. But I always remembered that lesson of like, listen to myself, know and trust and believe in myself, and take care of my needs and my priorities and my purpose, which is such a big factor of what I do. And so it's why I'm so passionate about watching women who are phenomenal women with great talent and great aspirations hinder themselves and limit themselves and hold themselves back because of expectations from outside, or even their own past, not necessarily the golden handcuffs, but also just that idea like, well, I've invested so much in this endeavor,
Right.
or this path, or, whatever. And it's like, if you are not happy, then it doesn't matter. At some point, you have to recognize that life wants you to be happy, because that's what it needs of you. It needs you to be expressed from this place of joy and abundance.
Yes.
Not from doubt, not from fear, not from obligation. And all of those things just keep us so weighed down, and they are unhealthy.
And the thing that always has struck me about your story is, in the midst of literally a physical manifestation of this big warning in your life, right? And you're still putting other people's needs and your sense of responsibility and duty above your own thing. And I think, that is a beautiful thing that women have, but it is also comes back to really being a negative to ourselves. Is that really what has to happen?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely
Right?
a double-bladed sword, right? It
Yes.
really is. It is, because there is something about that. Like, that is, the infamous, how can a woman lift a car off her child? Because
Right.
we are hardwired
Yes.
to do that. And there has to be balance in that. And people talk about balance, and, it's hard, because I think they want to think of balance as 50-50.
Yeah.
Like, when we think of balance, we're like, oh, well, it's going to be 50-50. And I really think about the fact that really balance is about flow,
Yes. I
energetic
agree.
flow. And when you're paying attention, you're going to notice when the energy flows one way or the
Right.
other. And I think of balance more along the lines of, standing on a balancing beam, or, where you have to keep both of your legs,
Right.
moving slightly so that you can keep that steadiness. It's not about just one or the other, right?
Yeah.
And so often when women think that way, they don't think they can give up half of their life,
Right.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so they just don't. They just keep going.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, well, some days you're going to give 85% to the business, and some days you're going to give 85% to your life and yourself.
Right.
I hope. In that, if you're paying attention, that will balance out over time.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know, because I think that women who want to move in a different direction from where they're at right now, I think they look at it as a zero-sum game, right?
Yes.
And it's not.
It's not. It's not. Nothing is ever lost.
Right.
Right? So no part of who you were up to the point you make the new decision is lost for you.
Right.
Instead, what it is it's a part of your new story. It becomes part of your new toolbox. It becomes your resource, right? And if you let it, and side note, I didn't, to be honest. I'm going to tell the truth to myself. I like to tell the truth to myself. So the first thing I did was hang up my shingle, and I was a hypnotherapist because I was a trained hypnotherapist. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. And so when I did that, I thought I couldn't talk about business anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not in the business realm anymore. Shh, don't anybody. And suddenly the universe said, oh, well, actually what we want you to do is what I'm doing now, right? So as an intuitive business architect, I actually do help a lot of people with their businesses because I have a lot of experience.
Right.
Right. So I have this knowledge base that I get to utilize along with my intuitive gift. And when I learned that that was the key, my business took off.
Yeah. I love talking to people like yourself who are outside of what the rest of us think is mainstream, right?
Right.
I mean, people who have gifts that they hide and have for a long time, right? You know, women are, even when they're not an oracle, they have intuitive gifts, right?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes.
That they are often using and being, it's dismissed because it's not backed up with numbers or data or facts, right? So how did you get the courage to kind of lean into that instead of leaning away from that? Or, as you said at one time in your life when you first started your business, compartmentalizing, right? And I'm only going to do this here and this way, right?
It's true. Well, I think a little bit of it was that. I think at the beginning, I tried to okay, well, so we're going to have this conversation. We're going to have that conversation. What I recognize, though, is it is all energy, right? So it's all energetics, and we are all energy. So we use our energy up when we're actually trying to compartmentalize. We do.
100%.
We just spend so much more energy trying to put things in boxes. And then it's and it's all in our own head, by the way. It's all in our own head that has to be the way it is.
Yeah.
But there's a part of that, I think, as you said, because as women, I mean, let's be honest, you know, real talk. It's not yet still easy for us just to be.
No.
Period.
No.
So it is no surprise, really, that those parts of us that were more subtle and feminine and natural, that we were actually suppressed and held back for, it's not easy for us to reclaim those in our lives. Especially if we're working in male-dominated fields, right? Or if they're not male-dominated now, they have been in the past. And so it's we still need to encourage each other, which is what I'm all about, of leaning into the fullness of ourselves. And yes, I believe that everybody has an intuitive gift, and there are psychic abilities. I say if we really wanted to, the reason we can't read each other's minds, all of us as humanity, is because we tell too many lies. And not just to each other, somebody saying that, to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So it is about that ability to kind of open ourselves to that message within us to help us guide us forward, but to utilize it because that's what it's for, to have a full and rich life.
But it's scary in there, and you don't always want...
It can be. I think it gets less scary when we get more honest.
Yeah.
I think the scariest part, for a lot of the women that I work with that are in their 40s or 50s or even 60s, they have been holding that secret for a very long time.
Right.
And so once they let it out, it's kind of fun. Because at first it might be scary, but then it's thrilling. Right. And then they're some of the sassiest, amazing women in the world because they suddenly have that power back.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of it's been bottled up all these years. And so they're really enjoying the opportunity to be full force in their lives. And that's incredible.
And I always think, too, that when women hold themselves back, and whatever that looks like for an individual woman, there is a cost. There's a cost to themselves, right? Clearly. But there's a monetary cost to the rest of us. Because if we could only harness all of this fabulosity, right?
I love that. Let's put that on a t-shirt. Fabulosity.
of all of the women across the world who have held themselves back, at the same time they're holding up communities, children, extended family. Boy, would we make, we'd be a lot better world, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because the thing that is there that we are missing out on is that massive amount of creativity. right? The ability to move and think and look at life in a way that makes things move and change. And as you said, like, we run everything.
Right.
Full stop. And now, if we were to allow ourselves to do that at full strength,
Right.
how much better? Absolutely. More efficient.
Yeah.
You know, you'd see more efficiencies, I think. And moving into that intuitive side of things allows us to be in that flow I was speaking of. Well, the great thing about flow is it makes us make decisions quicker. And you know, the best way in business is to make decisions quickly. Like, you
Right.
have to be ready to take charge. And so, yes, money moves faster.
Yeah.
Deals move faster.
Yeah.
People move faster, you know? Projects move faster. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't believe we're at the end of this time already. It went so fast. But what I want to ask is if the Oracle would be able to grace us with her presence and to give a message really to the women out there watching this who may lack the courage right now to take whatever the next step is. Oh, that's going to make me teary. What would the Oracle say?
That is such a beautiful question. Thank you for asking. We're in an important time now where each of us as human beings are being called to be not only who we are meant to be, but also together more. So she's calling us as not only women, but as humanity to really lean into each other, to trust each other on a human level. Don't hide your face. Don't keep your heart hold. Really start reconnecting with who you are as humans. That's the key. Because women are ready to move this mountain. We just have to trust each other.
Wow, what an amazing message. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time on Her Table, Her Rules.